Welcome, everyone, to another episode of John Sees Truth. Welcome. I hope everybody's doing well. I know I'm doing well. Thank God it's Friday. I actually work outside of this. I actually have to go to a 9 to 5. I got a wife. I got kids. Yeah. John has a life. But today's episode, I came across in my files on my computer a very interesting document, a document that pertains to a process that I've actually employed in my life and actually have had some experiences. Not bad experiences, a little scary at one point. What it did is it caused me to have episodes of sleep paralysis, and at the time I didn't know what was happening to me. So naturally I panicked. Basically, sleep paralysis is when you're asleep, and you know that you're not conscious. I mean, not conscious in the sense that we think of consciousness, but you're kind of trapped in your body and you're unable to move your limbs. You're unable to just basically do anything but be present in your body while it's asleep, physically, but mentally you're awake. And it causes people to panic because you're basically paralyzed in this state. So you feel trapped in your body. And when you panic, you fight to get control of your motor functions, and you're fighting to move. And in this panic state, you usually blast yourself awake, usually with a startle. So that's what was happening to me. And then I watched a podcast with a gentleman who claims to have out-of-body experiences every single night. And he said that when you enter into that state of sleep paralysis, that instead of panicking, you need to relax and go with it. And that's the gateway to having an out-of-body experience. So I made sure to take note of that. I made sure that I knew that, sometimes you can't just take information in. Sometimes you have to log it in. You have to really get it in there, So I wrote it down, So the next time that it happened, I didn't panic. And I've told you guys in previous episodes about this experience briefly, but this time I'm doing it in a more complete manner. And what happened when I relaxed, in the sleep paralysis moment, when I relaxed and went with it, I had this lucid dream of people that I was deeply connected to in this dream, that I had deep relationships with inside of this dream. But they were people that don't exist on the physical plane. Now, maybe they do exist on the physical plane, but I just don't know them in the real world. But in this dream state, I was so deeply connected with them, they felt like family. And this was one of the... And I've had dreams like this in the past. And I guess I just didn't know what was happening. Now, do I consider that an out-of-body experience? I don't know. But when I read this document again today, it brought me back to that experience. And in this document, as you'll see, it's very well possible that I was actually communicating and basically vibing with people outside of time and space. So we're going to get into it. I'm going to bring up this document for everybody to see. Man, just let's take a look at it and let's break it down. So here you'll see, this is the document, Department of the Army, U.S. Army Operational Group, U.S. Army Intelligence and Security Command, Fort George G. Meade, Maryland. To Commander of the U.S. Army Operational Group, Fort Meade, Maryland. Subject analysis assessment of the gateway process. And here you'll see, whoops, sorry. You tasked me to provide an assessment of the gateway experience in terms of its mechanics and ultimate practicality. As I set out to fulfill that tasking, it soon became clear that in order to assess the validity and practicality of the process, I needed to do enough supporting research and analysis to fully understand how and why the process works. Now, this was a previously classified document that they unclassified. Issued a date here. This is June 9th, 1983. Um, Initially based on conversations with a physician who took the gateway training with me. I had resource to the biomedical models developed by Itzhak Bentov to obtain, and he's a very interesting character. You can research him. Isaac Bentov to obtain information concerning the physical aspects of the process. Then I found it necessary to delve into various sources for information concerning quantum mechanics in order to be able to describe the nature and functioning of human consciousness. I had to be able to construct a scientifically valid, reasonably lucid model of how consciousness functions under the influence of the brain hemisphere synchronization technique, other words, hemisync, for those of you who aren't familiar, employed by Gateway. Once this was done, the next step involved recourse to theoretical physics in order to explain the character of the time-space dimension and the means by which expanded human consciousness transcends it in achieving Gateway's objectives. Finally, I again found it necessary to use physics to bring the whole phenomenon of out-of-body states into the language of physical science, to remove the stigma of its occult connotations and put it in a frame of reference suited to objective assessment. Now, the reason why I'm bringing this document up and talking to you about this experience that I had, and just trying to give credibility to the idea of out of body experiences and to be able to operate outside of time and space as we would think of it. And when you do this, you got to also include the theories of quantum mechanics and such. And basically, I think that this team of Green Berets and Special Forces gentlemen who have started this Skywatchers um, initiative, how they link up with these craft and become able to pilot these craft, I believe may have something to do with this very process. And even if they don't know that that's what they're doing, they may be doing that. And also that all of us have this ability if you just have the open mind and effort to try it. And patience. It does take a little patience. So I'm gonna go ahead and skip ahead because a lot of it is a lot of scientific mumbo jumbo. Um, but I'll skip over this paragraph here. Um, he's just talking about the narrative of profiling the fundamental biomedical factors affecting the blah, blah, blah. You get it. You know, techniques, hypnosis, biofeedback, transcendental meditation. All this is kind of other forms of the gateway process. But in paragraph 3 here, it says Niels Bohr, a renowned physicist, once responded to his son's complaints about the obtuse nature of certain concepts in physics by saying, "You are not thinking, you are merely being logical. The physics of altered human consciousness deals with some conceptualizations that are not easily grasped or visualized exclusively in the context of ordinary left brain linear thinking. So, to borrow Dr. Bohr's mode of expression, parts of this paper will require not only logic, but a touch of right brain intuitive insight to achieve the complete, comfortable grasp of the concept involved. Nevertheless, once that is done, I am confident that their construction and application will stand up to the test of rational critique." So basically, and I'm sure a lot of you already know this, but you have two hemispheres to your brain, right? And you got the right hemisphere and the left hemisphere. And a lot of people that are left-handed, they're more right brain, um, more right brain. They use their right brain more. Okay, and people that are right-handed use their left hemisphere more. And basically, the left hemisphere is based within like scientific processes, logic, a lot of like concrete, testable theories. Like you can't, they're more materialistic, I should say. where the left brain is more artistic, more intuitive, you know, tends to be more in touch with their emotional side, and less concrete logic based functionality in their thinking and the way that their brain works. So basically, this process puts together a way to consolidate your left and right hemispheres of the brain. And by doing this, you open up more, I don't want to say brain power, but you're beginning to use the whole of your brain. And in doing this, you open yourself up to being able to basically have more psychic abilities, um, out of body experiences, um, and maybe the ability to contact non human intelligences. And if you get good enough, you might be able to pilot a UAP, uh, as these gentlemen are showing is possible. And as Chris Bledsoe, the famous experiencer, has showed that he can do it. I don't know if he says he pilots the craft, but he sure as hell brings them in through communication. Stephen Greer's CE5, same thing. They meditate, they open up their mind, and they're able to bring these craft in. And I think that this process may be a possible way to do it. That might have been why this was classified for so long. Um, so we're going to move forward, and as you can see, this was authored by Wayne M. McDonald. I guess he was a commander, lieutenant colonel, maybe. I don't know. It says LTC. Is that Michigan? I don't know. Commander. So anyway, Wayne M. McDonald. And when I tried to look him up, I couldn't find anything on him. So he was the one, I guess, authored this paper. So, in order to describe the Monroe Institute technique for achieving altered states of consciousness, the gateway experience involving brain hemisphere synchronization or hemisync, the most effective way to begin is to briefly profile the basic mechanics which underlay operation of related methods such as hypnosis, transcendental meditation, and biofeedback. It is easiest to effectively describe what gateway is by beginning with a short description of those associated techniques that share some common aspects with the gateway experience, but which are nevertheless different. In this way, we can develop a frame of reference at the outset which will provide useful concepts to explain and understand gateway by comparison as we proceed. Now, to me, that was, you know, this type of language they use, sometimes it becomes a little bit harder to understand. But you see, they mentioned the Monroe Institute, and it was started by a gentleman who was having out of body experiences, and he actually wanted to, scientifically analyze and use the ability, which he does. And the Monroe Institute, you can go there, take retreats there, meditate, get into your, and learn how to do this. And a lot of people do. And a lot of people go there and are successful at having out of body experiences. And not only that, but other experiences, like maybe the experience I had. And it's really, really interesting to me. If you ever watch Third Eye Drops, the podcast, excellent podcast. He went to the Monroe Institute, and he had an experience. The gentleman from Area 52, another podcast, he went there. He had an experience. So people are going there, and people are having these experiences, and this is obviously a legitimate thing. I mean, so much so that the top people in the Army not only studied it, but also classified it and kept it from us for a long time. So, according to the theories of psychologist Ronald Stone and biomedical engineering models of the Itzhak Bentov, hypnosis is basically a technique which permits acquisition of direct access to the sensory motor cortex and pleasure centers, and lower cerebral emotional portions and associated pleasure centers of the right side of the human brain, following successful disengagement of the stimulus screening function of the left hemisphere of the brain. The left hemisphere of the brain is the self-cognitive verbal linear reasoning component of the mind. So this is the part of your mind that keeps track of time. This is the part of your mind that keeps track of the spatial dimensions of your environment. This is the side of your mind that does the math problems and such. The left side is the more artistic. The left side is more, abstract part of your brain. The one that's kind of operates on a different level. That's into abstract art, that maybe likes to write and read books, more emotional side. So basically, the idea here. Let me skip down. Here's you can see pictures of the brain here. What they're explaining. They're basically explaining the different areas of your brain, um, and your motor cortex, sensory cortex, ventricles. A lot of things that I don't know too much about. So here's like more of a entire view of the brain here. You're looking at the third ventricle, and uh, get into your lateral aperture and such. We're going to skip over that. So basically, what we're going to get into is the idea of how they hemisync the two sides of your brain, and they use these binaural beats, and they get your brain operating on the wavelength of like vibration, sound, you know. And I believe what they do is they play two different sounds into your brain at different hertz, right? And the brain syncs between, so the brain operates like in the middle of the differentiation of the two sound vibrations that are happening. So you got it going in one ear and you got it going in the other ear. Two different sounds, two different vibrational sounds. And what the brain does is it finds the middle, and it syncs in the difference in the differential part of the vibrational sound. And by doing that, it syncs. And when that happens, you can experience out of body experiences and experiences that are outside of time and space. But we're going to get to that. I don't want to get too far ahead. I hope that didn't confuse you guys because this is a very confusing subject. I had to read this a couple times. As a result, according to Bentoff, these waves will stimulate and eventually polarize the cortex in such a way that it will tend to conduct a signal along the homunculus, starting from the toes and then on up. Bentoff biomedical mod. The Bentoff, blah, blah. The Bentoff biomedical model, as described in a book by Lee Sanella entitled Kundalini, Psychosis, or Transcendence, states that the standing acoustical waves are the result of the altered rhythm of heart sounds, which are occasioned by a prolonged practice of meditation, and which set up sympathetic vibrations in the walls of the fluid filled cavities which comprise the third lateral ventricles of the brain. In addition, according to Bentoff, the states of bliss described by those whose Kundalini symptoms have completed the full loop along the hemispheres may be explained as a self stimulation of the pleasure centers in the brain caused by the circulation of a current along the sensory cortex. Bentoff also notes that most of the described symptoms start on the left side of the body, means that it is mostly a development occurring in the right hemisphere. Although normally a period of meditation involving intense concentration and practice for 5 years or some is required to bring up the range of 4 to 7 hertz. Excuse me. Take this back. Although normally a period of meditation involving intense concentration and practice for 5 years or some is required to bring up the Kundalini, Bentoff states that the exposure to mechanical or acoustical vibrations in the range of 4 to 7 hertz cycles per second for protracted periods may achieve the same effect. Bentoff cites as an example repeated riding in a car whose suspension and seat combination produce that a range of vibrations, or being exposed for long periods of time to these frequencies caused, for instance, by an air conditioning duct. He also notes that the cumulative effect of these vibrations may be able to trigger a spontaneous psychokundalini sequence in susceptible people who have a particularly sensitive nervous system. We're going to get to the meat and potatoes now. I wasn't going to read all the prior things, but you can go and you can actually retrieve this document and download it for yourself. But we're going to get right into Gateway and Hemisync, right? Okay, and I guess in the paragraphs before this, they briefly profiled the basic mechanics of the principal techniques for altering and expanding consciousness, which share some of the objectives and or methods employed in the Gateway experience. We will proceed to focus on what that technique actually involves. Now, in the previous paragraphs, it basically explained the different ways that people could achieve this Kundalini type of expanded consciousness. And I didn't read it because it's really kind of difficult, tongue twisting type stuff, and it's boring. But if you want to go and look it up, you can. But basically, it's talking about sound waves linking the left and right hemispheres of your brain. And by doing this, expanding your consciousness, having out of body experiences, and you know, basically becoming psychically gifted. And that all of us have this ability if we become more left hemisphere, type of driven type of people, um, or not. Maybe you can just, go through this process, sync up, and have these experiences on your own. It's basically what it's saying here. So, let's see. Okay, fundamentally, the gateway experience is a training system designed to bring enhanced strength, focus, and coherence to the amplitude and frequency of brainwave output between the left and right hemispheres, so as to alter consciousness, moving it outside the physical sphere so as to ultimately escape even the restrictions of time and space. The participant then gains access to the various levels of intuitive knowledge which the universe offers. What differentiates the gateway experience from forms of meditations is its use of the hemisync technique, which is defined in a monograph by Monroe Institute trainer Melissa Yeager as a state of consciousness defined when the EEG patterns of both hemispheres are simultaneously equal in amplitude and frequency. Although hemisync seems to be rather rare and of only short duration in ordinary human consciousness, Melissa Yeager states that audio techniques developed by Bob Monroe can induce and sustain hemisync with the Institute's basic Focus 3 tapes. She also notes that studies conducted by Elmer and Alice Green at the Menninger Foundation have shown that a subject with 20 years of training in Zen meditation could consistently establish hemisync at will, sustaining it for over 15 minutes. Dr. Stuart Temlow, a psychiatrist and research associate of the Monroe Institute, reports that in our studies of the effect of the Monroe tape system on brainwaves, we have found that the tapes encourage the focusing of brain energy. It can be measured as with a light bulb in watts. Wow. Into a narrower and narrower frequency band. This focusing of energy is not unlike the yoga concept of one-pointedness, which we may translate in Western terms as a single-mindedness. Dr. Temlow, I don't know, goes on to observe that as the individual gets into the tapes beyond focus 3, there is a gradual increase in brainwave size, which is a measure of the brain energy or power. So what that's saying is you can achieve these states without having to go through Zen meditation training for 20 years like a monk. And now you can experience expanded consciousness. I believe this is true. I just from my experience with the sleep paralysis and having these dreams of individuals who I feel like I love and I'm connected with on a deep level, and then wake up and realize that I don't know these people in real life. That in and of itself was kind of like, what just happened? What was that experience? So you can go and you can listen to the Gateway tapes. They're available. I listen to on YouTube. Granted, I had to have the headphones on backwards. Make sure you hear Bob Monroe's voice in your right ear, not your left, and you should be okay. Um, yeah. So is this process a way to awaken parts of the brain that maybe would grant you the abilities that some of these special forces guys that are coming out on News Nation and to actually be able to communicate with non-human intelligences and be able to bring them in and have a contact event? Is that possible? I don't think it's outside the frame of possibility, and I think that's mind blowing. So again, this is the Gateway tapes, Gateway process. This is the declassified document. We're at this section 7, frequency following response. This is basically explains how this hemisync works. So frequency following response, or FFR for short, to achieve synchronization of brain hemispheres, The hemisync techniques takes advantage of a phenomenon known as the frequency following response, or FFR, which means that if a subject hears a sound produced at a frequency which emulates one of those associated with the operation of the human brain, the brain will try to mimic the same frequency pattern by adjusting its brainwave output. Therefore, if a subject is in a fully awake state but hears sound frequencies which approximates brainwave output at theta level, the subject's brain will endeavor to alter its brainwave pattern from the normal beta, which is like the awake state, to the theta level, which is like like a subconscious state, not an unconscious state, but kind of like it's associated with sleep. The subject concerned may progress from a fully awake to a sleep state, provided that he does not consciously resist, as the brain strives to entrain its wave frequencies output with the one which the person hears, since these brainwave frequencies are outside the spectrum of sounds, which can be heard in a pure form by the human ear. Hemisync must produce them based on another phenomenon known as the brain's capacity for deducing beat frequencies. If the human brain is exposed to one frequency in the left ear, which is 10 hertz below another audible frequency played in the right ear, rather than hearing either of the two audible frequencies, the brain chooses to hear the difference between them. That's what I was talking about earlier. Got a little confusing. The beat frequency, thus availing itself of FFR phenomenon. And using the technique of beat frequencies, the gateway system uses hemisync and other audio techniques employing the FFR phenomenon to introduce a variety of frequencies which are played at a virtually subliminal, marginally audible level. The objective is to relax the left hemisphere of the brain, place the physical body in a virtual sleep state, or like a deep meditation, and bring the left and right hemispheres into coherence under conditions designed to promote the production of ever higher amplitude and frequency of brainwave output. Audible and perhaps subliminal suggestions by Bob Monroe accompany the various brainwave frequencies, which are sometimes rolled in together with other sounds, such as sea surf, to match the sound frequencies where desirable. In this way, Gateway endeavors to provide the subject with the tools by which he may alter his consciousness based on his own volition over time through the repetitive use of the tapes, so as to access via intuitive means new categories of information not available to ordinary consciousness. And basically what the government was trying to do was use this to spy on foreign adversaries, to be able to gain, like I said there, information not available to ordinary consciousness. And I believe that this was, the remote viewing program and stuff, things like that. It became a thing, and SRI, Stanford University, Russell Targan, and all of them were doing this, the remote viewing. And Bob Monroe had an institute. It's still open. And I was actually listening to a couple recordings of people who were in this hypnotic state, and they were communicating with non-human intelligences. And the one was actually in a spaceship in orbit around the Earth. And this person who was in this state was explaining to Bob Monroe, his communications with this being, and it was pretty interesting. So yeah, I mean, I employ everybody that's watching this, man, research this, check it out, try it. You might have an experience like I had, or you might actually have an out-of-body experience. I don't know. Well, everybody, that's the show for today. I hope you enjoyed it. I know I did. I always enjoy it. Sometimes I like hanging out with you guys, and I do most of the people in my life. I mean, aside from my wife and kids, I love them. But yeah, thanks for watching. If you like the show, hit the like and subscribe. This is John Sees Truth. I'll be back tomorrow, or maybe later tonight with some footage. But thanks for watching.